Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
Have you ever wondered what a different type of education would look like? Maggie Barth with the Innovation School in Bismarck, North Dakota is in studio.
Yay!
Very excited to have her here.
Have you ever wondered?
Always wonder.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. At the control panel, producer extraordinaire, Jim Walsh.
Ha!
And your weekend was?
It was not too bad.
Yeah.
The weather was not too bad.
Not too bad. Got a little rain.
Well, we need the rain.
We need the rain. It was
I
good
like
to see.
rain.
I do too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that if it starts to rain, I don't mind going out and being in it. I'm just saying it. Yeah. Isn't that Fred Astaire?
It's like Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly, thank you.
See? Or Clockwork Orange.
Way Clockwork.
I'm singing in the rain.
Probably not with Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, let's not go with that one this morning. That's my Monday head kicking in.
That's right.
Monday head.
So did you watch any of the coverage from Charlottesville?
It was fascinating to watch. I mean, it was kind of a downer, of course, given the subject matter. But there were a lot of videos posted. I mean, I looked at YouTube about an hour after the thing with the car happened,
right? And
there was already a couple of hundred things posted there from it.
Amazing how times have changed. Huh?
Yes, it is.
I have a newspaper. I collect old newspapers. I don't know if I told you that.
Yes, you did.
And I have a newspaper in my office from 1832, and the article.
1832.
Yeah,
okay.
The article is on the front page of the Boston Worcestershire.
I don't know.
Yeah. It looks like Worcester.
I have a cousin in Massachusetts. I'll call him up.
It's kind of funny, actually. Nobody ever can say the name right?
Or Worcester.
That might be it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the article was written in 1830, published in 1832. So if you think about this, you're a reporter back then, right? You were dispatched to cover what was going on in the then Dakota Territory. It took 2 years just to get the story back.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah.
Whereas in today, it's instantaneous.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about the Civil War. When the Civil War ended, there were still, for several weeks, there were still little pockets in the country where battles were still going on.
Sure.
In fact, the final battle of the Civil War was a Confederate victory. It was out in Texas somewhere.
They just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, it was like middle of May before they got the word, and they had one final battle, and the Confederates won that.
Unbelievable.
And then they got the word, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Time to surrender.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, that's what we dealt with back then. So things really have changed a lot because of the internet and telephony and all that good stuff.
And the War of 1812, I think it was the Battle of New Orleans, happened actually several weeks or days after the truce had been signed.
Right. That's
a very famous one.
That was actually pretty common.
Yes.
Back in the days before there was any decent communication. That these wars went on for a long time after they were settled basically.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway. We're getting off topic here, of course, but
well, not really.
I guess that's true. Yeah. This is all about education
today. Tell me about your friend here.
Yeah, so Maggie, she was at 1 Million Cups here in Bismarck, North Dakota last week, and I was introduced to her. She is the co-founder of the Innovation School here in Bismarck, North Dakota. She has a different view on the educational process, Jim, and I thought it would be interesting to have her in, and we'll just talk about this a little bit. And then,
I just went back to school a couple of years ago, and I finished, got a master's degree, and I did a lot of it online.
Yes, so I'm thinking we're going to hear a little bit about that today. So, Maggie, welcome to the Tech Ranch.
Thank you.
So we're very, very excited to have you here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Innovation School first?
Well, the Innovation School is a new elementary school in Bismarck, Mandan, and we're located over in Bismarck, and it's really just a school that looks at things differently, and we value things differently. Right now we're kindergarten through 5th grade, and we're a project-based, inquiry-based school, and we're just excited to have this kind of educational opportunity for our community. There's schools like this in other states, but we really didn't have anything here, and we thought we wanted to change that. So
what's driving you to do this?
I think it started with my own children. They really just needed something different from their schools, and I worked really closely with their schools and their teachers and had great relationships with them, but I just felt frustrated with the rigidity of the system itself, and kind of started asking the inquiry inquiring, why can't something be different? Why can't we have something different? Why are there, roadblocks? And so I just continued to dig in deeper and research, and they really started driving me. And then I also kind of look back too. I'm sort of inspired by thinking about myself as a little kid, and how if I could have had this type of environment, it would have been really beneficial for me as well. So
we're going to get into the environment in a little bit and how you're doing this, but I would have to imagine that there's quite a few roadblocks here. I mean, at least on the surface, it seems to me that there would be. First of all, the business model seems to be, and I know we're not going to get into that too much, but this is not a publicly funded school, is it?
Right. No,
so this is something that tuition plays a part in. So you have to sell the school. On top of actually being a great school, you have to sell it.
Right.
Which is, I think, very, very interesting. And then secondly, I would have to think that you're going right up against Department of Education here. I mean, they have these standards in place, right? I mean, how have they been to work with so far?
DPI has been really helpful, actually, as far as answering my questions about what I would need to do in order to, even bring this to fruition. So they have been really helpful. I think that, there was a bill sponsored for innovative learning and trying to make changes even within the public system. It was during this past legislative session, and I went and spoke and testified when it was in the Senate, because I was really excited about this, having a little bit more leeway to do something different and innovative. And it did pass. It went through the Senate and then the House, and it did pass. And that was a bill that was really kind of sponsored by DPI. I mean, they were working on it with a few legislators that really feel strongly about this too. And so I want to be hopeful that we're moving in the right direction. For me, the frustrating piece is just that with every minute that we delay, our kids get a minute older. And
sure.
A minute of, time technology-wise, it's just changing exponentially. And so for me, we need to get going. We need to get going faster and get rid of some of the red tape. So
I think one of the challenges, of course, is that when you're dealing with government it's a slow-moving process.
Right.
They go through due diligence, and I understand that. I mean, but we live in an era that things move forward so quickly that the government is almost always playing catch-up now.
Right.
I mean, it's almost impossible to get ahead of things. Even industry, it's almost impossible to get ahead of things right now. So, how do you transfer that to the education system is just really beyond me. So, especially when you're at that level where, you have a process that you have to go through with legislature and everything else to make things change. That happens every 2 years. Well, things change dramatically in 2 years right now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we'll continue our conversation with Maggie after the break, and we're going to get into how she views what's going to go on in her classrooms. It'll be a very interesting conversation.
Right now, 60.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or thetechranch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank everyone who follows us across the country and around the globe on the Blueberry Network. We're also on the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. We're on iTunes, tuned in. We're on the Roku. We're on Apple TV. Although it's just the audio part of Apple TV. We're gonna have to get better with the video part of that one of these days. We've experimented a little bit, but it's never been great.
You mean I'm going to have to start bathing and dressing up?
Well, doing the show shirtless, like what's his name that runs Russia now?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Riding on a pony.
Why is it that every time I see that guy, he doesn't have his shirt on?
I think he's a big Bill Shatner fan.
What?
He saw that one Star Trek where Shatner's running around with his shirt
right.
on. Yeah, wrestling with the big lizard thing.
Speaking of which, it was the 30th anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation last week, and they had a big convention in Vegas. While I was there,
all right,
and I didn't even get to go to it.
Oh, bummer.
I know. I was really disappointed.
How did you not finagle that?
It was really, really difficult for me not to be there, but I had to be up in, I was only in Vegas for like 8 hours.
I used to work with a guy in radio. He lives in Indiana. I forget his name, but he's not a famous guy, but his job is to help organize and book these Star Trek events.
Oh, yeah. I can believe that. It's a huge deal.
And he's gotten to know just about every member of the cast. I think the only one he hasn't met is Shatner.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at this last one here too.
Yeah,
I guess
okay.
what is he, 83, 84?
Yeah, he's up there.
It's amazing how good he looks for his age.
Well, his hair is only 27.
Yeah, exactly. Good point, Jim.
Thank you.
So anyway,
That's a tribble on his head.
yeah,
you know?
yeah, it kind of looks that way now too. Actually, I think he's got the best hair he's ever had in his career. Right
I think
now.
so.
He
Right
looks
now,
pretty good
yes.
right now.
Yes.
So it's funny. Anyway, sitting next to me, Maggie Barth. Maggie is the co-founder of the Innovation School here in Bismarck, and we're just talking about the school, and we want to get into how you see a classroom. And, how do you see, what's different between our traditional schools and what you're going to be offering your students this year?
I think one of the biggest differences is just in our daily schedule. So oftentimes in a traditional classroom, it's dictated by, this is math time, this is social studies, now we got to stop and go to gym, or whatever that might be. And that's one thing that I think teachers often feel frustrated with, is that they're stuck to this rigid schedule. If some students are involved in a project and they're really engaged in learning, they sometimes have to say, "Oh, call it quits," and move on to the next thing. And so I think that's one thing that's really different. But we also are bringing bringing technology into our school. So we have a couple of 3D printers that we went to a conference and learned quite a bit about, actually. And we have some robotics kits that we really hope to utilize within the classroom. And really, kids as young as kindergarten can be learning different ideas about coding and computer science. And just so they are starting to get exposed to some of that is really helpful.
So if a student's engaged in something and, you must have some type of time schedule that you have to keep.
We do.
Is there, so you're saying that there's overlap, though, that if, they seem to be really engaged in something, or if the whole classroom is engaged in whatever, that you can go on another 10 or 15 minutes without having to have a bell go off that says you got to go to your next class?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. So tell us about the 3D printers. What do you envision with those?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of times gets talked about in education is that we need to bring the real world to our students. And so we really want to show our students that, yes, this is how 3D printers work, and show them that how they work in the real world, how people utilize them for different prototyping and things like that. But, the real world to a 6-year-old may very well be in creating a dinosaur, you know what I mean? So we also can see the whimsy of the 3D printers as well, in tying it even with art standards and things like that. So I found using the 3D printer, like just with students, they enjoy making something purposeful, something functional, even if it's not something, quote, cool. But they also love, digging through the different designs within a library and online and seeing something. Oh, I want to make a penguin, or I want to make my kids just made a maraca. They were so excited. They 3D printed a maraca. And so just really giving them the exposure that this is a new technology, and that and then we'd like to bring in, community members and having them talk about how they actually utilize it, at their job. So
how much do you know about 3D printers?
Personally, not that much.
Okay.
I'm learning right along with the students. And that's another thing I think that makes us a little bit different, is that we're sort of unafraid of that idea that we may not know, but we want to learn and we want to expose our students to it. So we want to call in experts and learn with them so that we can, push them if this is where something that's necessary for them, or this is what's happening in the real world. We want to be able to expose them to that.
So what about certification of your teachers? Do they have to go through a process like regular teachers do? How does that work?
That's a great question. Actually, DPI, our North Dakota state law, states that we have to have highly qualified teachers. So all of our teachers could teach really in any school in North Dakota. Some states have different laws where if you're a private school, you don't have to hire highly qualified teachers, but in North Dakota you do. So all of our teachers are highly qualified. One has her master's degree. So our teachers are, but I think it's more of the mindset of our teachers that they're excited to be learners again, and not just, the one with the content, giving the content out. They're actually learning the content and helping kids create content as we go.
And what about students testing then? I mean, how do you determine that they've moved on from first to second grade and that type of thing?
Well, we actually have combined classrooms, and so our students may stay in a classroom for 2 years. They may be in the kindergarten, first grade classroom for 2 years and then move on to our second, third grade classroom. And so really it depends a lot on not just their abilities, but even their social and emotional level. Maybe they're comfortable still in that K1 class, and that's where their peers are, and they're not quite ready to move on. And in our environment, it's that flexibility really lends itself well to helping them grow from right where they're at, which is essentially when it comes to testing, and that's what everyone wants to test is growth. Where can we see growth? And so I think our environment really will help teachers be able to do that.
So I would imagine most students, and I'm just thinking to myself when I was in school too, excelled at math. Wasn't really that great at reading at that time, but math was my big deal, right? You have to have students that excel in some areas and don't excel or as rapidly in other areas. Is this an environment that encourages somebody, and I'm just picking on myself again, that
Sure.
I was just hungry for math. I couldn't get enough of it, and quite frankly got bored with it in school because it seemed like I went past my own teacher's abilities. I'm not bragging about myself at all. That's not what this is about. I just was really hungry for math at the time, and in a rural school didn't have a lot of offerings. So is there a way that you can help that development along, or how does that work?
Absolutely. I think that is another amazing thing about having the small class sizes, and having, instead of looking at it like you're in second grade, you have to learn these things because you're in second grade. We can take a second grader who maybe is at a fourth grade level for math and really help them excel right from where they are at the beginning of the year. Maybe at the end of the year, they're at a fifth grade level for math. And so it really, I think it's a perfect environment for that. In fact, we're getting a lot of parents that are interested. Their kids are bored in school, and especially in a certain subject. And so that's really appealing to a lot of parents out there.
Okay, interesting. So tell me about technology. I know we talked about 3D printers a little bit. What other technology do you think is important to have in your classroom?
I think it's important to expose kids to the idea of computer science and how many different areas that is, because we have no idea what they'll be, what the job market will be like when they have jobs. But we do know that computers are not going to go away, and so for them just to get exposed to that, I think it's important for kids to learn how to code. There's all kinds of great software out there that's kid friendly for them learning how to code, but I don't think that's necessarily the magic answer for changing education. What we really need our kids to be able to do is be hungry to learn new things. Like you were talking about being hungry to learn math. That's essentially, when we have new technologies coming about, is because someone wanted to learn something new and they pushed themselves. And so I think creating an environment where kids are excited to learn new things will translate well when they're adults into, they may have several different career paths in their life just because times are changing so quickly. And so, like for me, I don't have a lot of spare time right now, but I'm trying to teach myself Python because I think it's interesting and I want to learn more about it. And so I think just really helping kids, get excited about learning for the rest of their life is really important.
Python is a coding language, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So obviously things are really going to be different for the students that you have going through your school right now when they graduate. The career paths are going to be in fact, it's hard to describe. I talk a lot about this when I'm out and about, that the jobs that we have 10 or 20 years from now aren't even on the market yet.
Right.
Things are changing so fast. And the jobs that you could train for, if you want to become a truck driver, for example, and I just was at drone camp a week and a half ago, and I had all these kids, and I won't get into what I did with them, but asked them how many were going to have if they could choose between a smartphone and a driver's license, which would they pick? It was about 50-50 when it started. When I was done, there was only 20 left in a group of a few hundred kids that wanted their driver's license yet.
Oh, wow.
But, I asked them how many of them are planning to be a truck driver when they get to that age, and nobody raised their hand. And yet it's the number one occupation in the state and in this country.
Right.
So what do you do with this? And this industry is going to go away. Autonomous trucks are going to take over, and we're going to have a whole displacement. So you can't, I guess this isn't a great analogy because we don't have a lot of people that are coming up that want to be truck drivers right now.
Right.
But if you wanted to train for it, you would be training yourself to an industry that will be basically dead by the time you're right there. So, all right, everybody, after the break, Maggie and I will continue our conversation on the future of education. Come on back.
Right now, 60.
The Red River Farm Network. Ag News is here on Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And in studio, we have producer extraordinaire Jim Walsh and the co-founder of the Innovation School, Maggie Barth. And we're talking about education. Jim, do you have some questions that you maybe want to ask Maggie?
Here's a question I have about online teaching or online, taking courses online. It's something that people will bring up from time to time. The fact that a lot of the online learning, you're taking tests at home, unproctored, unsupervised, open book in a lot of cases. You're kind of on the honor system in that regard.
Yep.
Some teachers encourage you to do it without the book. Some don't seem to care. Are you really getting the same quality of education as you are in the class, where you actually have to take the lecture and then you have to take a proctored test where you're not allowed to have all those crib notes in front of you?
Well, I think that's a good question. But I think I can't tell you how many people I talk with that they almost feel the opposite, that they learn it for the test, they take the test, and then poof, it's gone. That's not it's not something that really was meaningful to them. And I think when you're doing an online program, a lot of times you're excited about what you're learning, you're sitting down to do it, and so it's a little bit more meaningful to you. So,
well, my personal experience was you do have to at least have a working knowledge of the material. If you don't, you're going to have trouble whether the material's in front of you or not.
Sure. Yeah.
We live in an age right now where AI, artificial intelligence, it's amazing that you can take a photo of a question that's on a piece of paper and it'll bring you an answer.
Right.
I mean, you think about that and you're sitting in a classroom or whatever and you're, I don't know, doing a worksheet or whatever it is, right? And you just take a photo of the question and the answer appears on your phone.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it's about... I think a person has to, obviously you have to know how to communicate, you have to know basics, skills, math skills, whatever. But the ability to, I don't even know how to explain this, I guess. I think a person should educate themselves as far as they can, but you really have to have the ability to be able to search out the answer.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So in my day, it was encyclopedias and libraries and whatever else, right? In today's world, it's the tools that you carry with you, whether it's your smartphone or your computer or whatever that you have. So, so you have a world of information at your fingertips like we've never had before. So that has to change how we educate people, right? I don't even know, like I said, I just don't know how to put it into words really, because if you're able to do the basic things, by the fourth grade, you probably know how to read and write and pretty good at most math skills, right? Do you really need to have more education than that? I guess that's kind of what I'm getting to here, because everything's at your fingertips now.
Well, and I think it comes down to our students need to learn how to ask questions,
Okay.
So if you're curious about something, you want to find something out, Google, and you Google that question, because you're curious. And so I think that to me is where I see education going. And it's not because we have so much information readily available. It doesn't have to be, we have to learn about sharks today because we're talking about biology, whatever. We should be able to learn what's important to us and what's interesting to us, and our kids we can help them learn how to learn. And because that right there, being able to ask critical questions and to remain curious. In fact, I was just on this Facebook forum, and one of the questions was, would you want your kids to be literate in reading or numeracy for math, or curious? If you had to choose one of those three, which would you choose? And I feel like in today's day and age, we need to foster curiosity, because that right there will lead them to learning to read and write and math skills. So.
Right. Very interesting. Maybe our 12-year school system is antiquated as well. As I'm posing this question to you, I'm thinking to myself, yes, if you're a doctor, as a patient, I want to know that you have certification, and But there are a lot of things. If you don't aspire to be a doctor, if you aspire to be a a carpenter or whatever, after you have a basic understanding of those skills, I mean, do you really need to go through 12 years of school anymore? And higher ed is the same way. I mean, do we need to go through 4 or 6 years for some of these career paths that people are taking? Again, I'm not talking about doctors and all these other things. I'm just talking about general lay people like you and I, So I don't know. I just think it has to change.
Well, and I agree. And the funny thing that you bring up doctors is that's always where my brain goes to. But if you talk with doctors who are having residents in these young kids, the college students coming in to learn from them, a lot of times they say they may know the content, but they don't know how to apply it. And that to me was eye-opening because
Sure.
That's always where my head would go is doctors. But yeah, we need to also teach our kids what to do with that information.
I gotcha. Okay.
To be able to apply it.
Sure.
You're talking about math. Like I always loved math too, but I think I would have been, my mind kind of would have been blown if someone would have shown me how to actually apply it instead of just sitting there doing calculus and having to calculate from 1 to 30 on my page. I think it would have been much more beneficial for me personally if someone had said, "Oh, okay, now here's how you use that in real life." So
interesting. To me, it was always about problem solving. That's
Yeah.
what I loved about math, is that you were figuring out these, ways to solve problems. And I suppose it's interesting as I've gotten older now that seems to be, whether it's math or not, it seems to be my number one skills. I'm a problem solver.
Right.
So it certainly, education can play that role, in reaching out through the critical thinking process, to figure out ways to solve issues and what have you. So, all right. So I have some apps on this list, and I'm just curious, whether you like them or not. If you think that there's value to these apps, that type of thing. And the first one is called Ready for SAT. So ready for your SATs, right? And this is an app, a series of test prep apps, and it basically asks you questions to prepare yourself for taking the SATs. So are you okay with prepping for SATs, or?
I think that it's just the way that it is right now, but I would like to be hopeful that we can kind of start getting away from having to prep for those kinds of tests, because if you're really talking about applying knowledge and applying learning in a school, that's a really hard thing to measure, and so someone getting a 600 on this portion of the SAT, how does that really correlate with what they've actually done? So I would really like to see us start kind of moving a little bit away from that and having kids with digital portfolios that they can show, this is a project that I worked on, and these are some community ties that I have and some networking, people that I've networked with. That's what I would love to see us preparing our kids in that fashion. I think, some of the apps there's amazing apps out there for pretty much anything you could do.
Right.
But I would love to see us moving away from that. And, if you want to get into higher ed, then you could present a digital portfolio instead of, here's what I got on my ACT and here's my GPA kind of thing.
So you think that there's way too much emphasis on your SAT score to get in the universities right now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Although I do think, in some of the research that I've done that, like for homeschool families who maybe have done more of a project-based learning, I mean, those kids still are getting into school. So I think that we often think you have to do these things, but I'd like to challenge, well, maybe you don't. Can you ask? Could we talk to a university about?
Sure.
So I think the question needs to be asked.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Photomath. So this is the app I was just kind of alluding to a little bit ago.
Yeah.
You can take a photo of a math problem. And it can be a word problem. It can be a regular straight-up math problem. And it'll show you a diagram on how to solve this problem. How do you feel about artificial intelligence and its ability to actually just take a photo or see an image and calculate the answer?
I actually am really excited by things like that because I think when you take something as complex as some different areas of math and you are able to make it simple, then you can then you can move on to the next step of learning as, okay, now what can I do with this? And so for an example of a blog I was just reading about, a student was figuring out how fast a robotic car he made went. And he wanted to figure out how he was able to test it, and he measured it. And came up with an average. And then he wanted to know how fast it went miles per hour. And so instead of having to sit down and hand calculate out that, they utilized technology so that he could figure it out quickly. And then he was able to move on to the next step of his project. And so instead of stopping and spinning into the calculation of it, we're able to utilize our technology in a way that helps kids move on to the next thing, instead of, okay, now I've got to sit down and do all this math. And like I said, I love math, so I was a math lover forever. And I think it's just a tool that helps us get through things quickly. And if you have good educators who are able to continue to push kids and having them ask more questions, then they can use the technology and then move on to, a more exciting piece that would come after that. So after he figured out how fast that car moved, then what could he do with it? Could he work on trying to make it faster? Could he work on trying to make it slower? Could they have races within the classroom with other students' cars that they created? And so it just kind of, it's just a different way of using it.
It's a very interesting insight, because the person could actually, you can take that across anything. So, if you have the ability to delve into DNA further, for example, because all this stuff is, you have an understanding of it already, and our computers and whatever are able to understand it. So you can, we're going to solve more questions to diseases in the future, because things like, you don't have a scientist trying to figure out these mathematical equations,
right,
because they have access to them a lot quicker nowadays. So that's very, very interesting. So next up is Grade Proof, and it's an AI that offers concrete ways to improve your grammar.
Oh, okay.
So are you okay with AI? And then we're going to have to go, after the break on this. So you'll have a couple minutes to think about this now, right? But are you okay with AI actually improving the way that we write? And we'll find out that answer after the break.
Right now, it's 63.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And in studio, we have the co-founder of the Innovation School, Maggie Barth. And I just gave her a question about AI with an app called Grade Proof. Grade Proof AI offers concrete ways to improve your style, check for originality, as well as identify complex grammatical issues that other word processors often miss. So how do you feel about AI getting involved in the way we write?
Well, I think, especially as adults and older students, it's really helpful. Like you and I were talking on the break, that we still need to know, if I use the TO or TOO, we still need to know those things, and especially at a, primary students level, they still need to learn those things so they can identify those. But for me, I just feel like the more tools that we have available that can make parts of our lives easier, they can just help us be more productive, And so I think sometimes people are afraid of these kinds of apps because, it's something new and different. Is robotics taking over the world? Or, will it just make people lazy? And I don't think that. I think that the apps will help make us more productive so that we can move on to something bigger and better,
So instead of writing, and I'm thinking of myself, for example, instead of writing 5 articles a week, I might be able to write 8 or 9 articles a week, because I don't have to go through and spend so much time proofing the article.
Right, absolutely.
Interesting. So yeah, and I agree with that. I think it's all about productivity, and the more information that you can get out to people, things that you have in your head that maybe you aren't able to share with people before, you can do that now because you have tools to do that with. So my next app on my list is Math Motion Cupcake. So this is interesting. Not many kids are excited to practice addition or multiplication outside of school, but they might be more enthusiastic about applying their math skills to run a mean cupcake business. So what this does is it helps you figure out the cost of production for cupcakes, how you sell them, and all this type of thing. It basically brings elementary level math to life in a deceptively sweet yet palatable package, is how they describe it.
Okay.
So,
well, I think that sounds really interesting. I guess I'm on the mindset that we should be doing that in our school. Like, let's figure out how to make cupcakes and how much each one would cost and what we would have to sell them for, and let's come up with a marketing plan. And so I think that's a great idea, but I think we could be doing that in class.
So you're thinking that you'd actually do this? You'd
Correct.
have a cupcake sale someday, and you'd figure
Right.
out how to. You're going to go through the whole process and figure out the price and cost, and sell me
Absolutely.
cupcakes.
Yep, absolutely. So
I'll
I
be
think
there.
that's a really cool idea, but I'd like to see it as a project that students are actually doing.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll be there. Let me know when the cupcake sale
Okay,
is. I'll be there.
perfect.
My study life. So school life is complicated. To help you stay on top of your schedule and often conflicting deadlines, my study life is more than just a day planner and school calendar. The app will send reminders to you about your schoolwork and that type of thing. So, are you going to, implement some type of system with your school to remind students and parents about homework and schedules and that type of thing?
Yeah, we will. We don't have a whole lot of homework that our students will actually have to do, but other than, just kind of reading and spending quality time with their families.
Okay.
But I think that there's so many great tools. Like, that sounds really amazing for, like, high school kids who have a lot of different, projects due and different things like that, where they would be able to manage that rather than trying to keep it all in their head. I feel like the older I get, I used to be able to keep all that stuff in my
Sure.
head. And so something like that, I think, sounds really helpful.
Okay, cool. There's a lot of apps out there, and the one that about different types of science, whatever, and this one's called the periodic table, and it's basically just that. It actually will show you the different levels of data about the periodic table. And I think you've probably answered this question already. The ability to have this information at your fingertips helps productivity. So
Absolutely.
I'm guessing we can probably just skip by that. Evernote, Google Keep, Microsoft OneNote. So do you implement any of these yourself? Or are you thinking of implementing these in your school?
Well, one of the people that I learned from out in Colorado at a school out there, they used Evernote.
Okay.
That was like sort of the system that they used to create digital portfolios for their students. And she actually gave me a contact for a new digital platform that we're actually going to be using that sort of manages our student portfolios, and it has a parent portal view, so parents can see, and then our teachers as well. So
Okay.
we're going to be using something different, but it's very similar in creating
Sure.
a digital portfolio for our students.
So Evernote, by the way, every tech branch I've ever done is in Evernote.
Oh, okay.
So all my notes are in there from the past. If I ever need to pull something back up from like 4 years ago or whatever, I have all those notes. Just what you're looking at right here is all right there. Always as I'm grabbing my phone, everything is here in Evernote on my phone or my computer or whatever. So that's what I love about Evernote is the ability to, if you do something in the past and you take a note, that it's just always there. So that's what I love about it. Google Keep, I'm starting to use that a little bit more because I kind of live in Google.
Yeah, I do
So Keep is very similar to Evernote. Probably organizes things a little more creatively on the screen. So visually, it's much more appealing. I'm not sure about if it's as good or better than Evernote yet. And I have never used Microsoft OneNote. Do you use OneNote at all?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
It pops
so-
up sometimes, but I don't.
Right. So, but I think all three of them have a value, whether it's for in the school system or just you and I in general for everyday
Right.
business or keeping track of our lives. So, Study Blue is and I think there's a lot of apps out there like this, but you can create flashcards.
Oh, okay.
And so you can create flashcards for a test that you have coming up or whatever, but it's something that you can create, and then you can carry that with them, or you can carry that with you on your tablet or your smartphone, so you can study anytime you want to.
Sure.
Which I think is kind of clever. But how do you feel about flashcards?
I don't like them.
Okay, that's okay.
But I do think as students get older and they are learning how to take notes that are meaningful to them, something like that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Some people need notes that are colorful or, more of a concept map type of idea. It just helps them organize their thoughts better. And so I think something like that would be really neat as students get older. Personally, I think math can be learned really organically through kids playing or just having discussions with their teacher, and you can manipulate all kinds of things to learn your numbers and stuff. So
Okay, interesting. Dropbox or Google Drive? What do you prefer?
Google Drive.
Okay, and why do you prefer Google over Dropbox?
I just everything, like you said, my whole life is in Google, it feels like, and so it's just so handy and easy to share. Although I've never really delved into Dropbox, it just has been really easy for me to use Google Drive. So
I think Dropbox probably carved a way towards online storage and that type of thing. I don't say that Google Drive was kind of a latecomer to this game, but the thing I like about Google Drive is that you have all these other tools in there, right? I mean, you can create a slideshow, you can create a document, you have all these other tools that are in there, store all your photos in there if you want to, so it's kind of creative that way.
Yeah.
Khan Academy.
I think Khan Academy is really interesting and really helpful to students. Just I think we're getting to a point, kind of like what Jim was saying, that so much of our stuff is online, and really creating a blended learning environment where kids can learn things online through something like Khan Academy, and also learn it in the classroom. I mean that's just where everything is going. So
have you ever done anything like got information or watched a video on YouTube that you can use in a classroom situation, or maybe at home because you're fixing your Maytag washer and they have the instructions? I mean, have you done stuff like that?
I have. I actually was leading a Lego robotics club at my kids' elementary school, and I was learning I was learning the Lego programming from sounded like a 12-year-old kid from India. I mean, that's who was teaching me how to do it on YouTube. And just this last time I left town, my mom was watching my kids, and something happened with my dishwasher, and she watched a YouTube video, got out the shop vac, and fixed my dishwasher.
Oh my goodness.
So I think that, the knowledge and the content is out there. We just have to be able to figure out how to find it and do something with it. Very interesting
Indeed. iTunes U kind of falls into the same thing. So iTunes has a basically an online, in fact, it's the world's largest digital catalog of free education content. So are you thinking about using iTunes U as well, or?
Absolutely, yeah. We are actually an iPad school, so all of our kids will be bringing iPads with them, and so there's so much out there that even for us, like, we all kind of have divvied it up between myself and the staff. Like, okay, you look up that and you look up that, so we can, get a good handle on which apps and things we'll use. And iTunes U, it's just like a great resource. So.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the school before we have to leave here. Where do they find more information about Innovation School?
They can go to our website at theinnovationschool.us or check us out on Facebook at School Innovate School on Facebook.
And this is K through 5?
K through 5 this year.
And how many students are you accepting this year?
We will take up to 36 this year.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So
we want to keep a small class size, 12 to 1. So.
Okay. And 12-to-1 ratio with teachers to students.
Right.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
So if a person wants to get a hold of you, they can just hop on the website, go to your Facebook page, or
absolutely.
Or
they can send me a message or send me an email, whatever they'd like if they want more information.
And of course, with 36 students, only 36 students, you better be getting a hold of Maggie pretty quickly, I think. So, all right, Maggie, it's a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you very
so
much.
for
Jim,
having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always. Have a great week, everybody.